Set up back-to-back supply creation and fulfillment, Section 2. Our learning objectives are as follows. After completing this lesson, you should be able to do the following. Describe the applications that participate in back-to-back sourcing and fulfillment. Identify additional or alternative setup options to support back-to-back flows for manufacturing, procurement, and inventory management. And describe the impact of the discussed setup options to the end-to-end flow. Our first topic describes the applications that participate in the end-to-end processing of back-to-back products. The listed applications participate in the end-to-end processing of back-to-back products. The applications highlighted in the bold are discussed in this lesson. The previous lesson, titled Set Up Back-to-Back Supply Creation and Fulfillment Part 1, covered the setup for the other 4 applications. Setup details of the applications which participate in the back-to-back fulfillment but are not included in this course are discussed in prerequisite courses such as Plan to Produce and Order to Cash. As notes, Planning Central is a part of the generic supply planning flow. It is used for planning components of a back-to-back item when the mode is fulfillment is make. Inventory management requires no additional back-to-back specific setups. It is only listed here for completeness. Our next topic will describe how to set up back-to-back process for manufacturing. This screenshot shows the setup details for manufacturing. Manufacturing requires no setup that is specific to back-to-back manufacturing of a standard or configured items. You'll also want to ensure that the system has a work definition for the back-to-back item. The navigation would be go to Manufacturing, then Work Definition. The associated task would be Manage Work Definitions. For a back-to-back item, create a work definition that describes the manufacturing process to build the item and is used to automatically create the work order. This will contain the following. Navigate to the Work Definition work area in the manufacturing application. In the Manage Work Definition Names page, you'll create the work definition name and select Used in Planning to enable the use of Planning Central to plan back-to-back items, components, and resources. This step is optional if a work definition name already exists. In the Manage Work Definition page, create a work definition by entering an item and a work definition name. Add work definition operations as a sequence of manufacturing tasks to make the item. This includes assigning all item structure components to the operations where they will be consumed, and adding equipment and labor resources to the operations where they will be used. If you are manufacturing a configured product, you'll also add the applicability rules to the option-dependent operations. Next, our topic will describe how to set up back-to-back process for purchasing. This screen shows how to set up purchasing. Enable the customer sales order fulfillment option when you're selecting feature choices during the procurement application installation. The navigation is Procurement and then Purchasing. The associated task is Manage Agreements. You'll then create a blanket purchase agreement for back-to-back items to automate the creation of purchase orders from approved requisitions. To do so, you navigate to the purchasing work area in the procurement application, and then you choose the following purchase agreement options to automate purchase order creation and submission for approval. Those options are Automatically Generate Orders and Automatically Submit for Approval. Our final topic describes back-to-back fulfillment process for flow. The swim lane flow depicts the order sourcing and fulfillment for back-to-back procurement. This process is the background for the activity practice which is included in this lesson. The process steps which are highlighted in red are also discussed in this lesson. These are the steps that will be covered in the practice. You'll request a purchase order. You'll then create a purchase order and send the item specifications to a supplier. This will request a reservation, reserve supply against demand, and then we'll receive against the purchase order. So receiving the finished goods will add to the warehouse with a reference to the reservation for the sales order. Then finally, this sales order will be shipped, which will send the finished goods from the warehouse to the customer. A summary of your practice steps are as follows. You will review the supply order that was created in the previous lesson by searching on the PO number. From the supply chain orchestration order, you will then review the PO and its status, associated reservation, and receive the purchase order. After the PO has been received and supply becomes, you will ship the order to the customer. Finally, you will see that in Order Fusion Order Management, how the entire process of act. Practice 8.1 will walk you through the final steps of how to perform an end-to-end fulfillment of a back-to-back order. Again, to our chapter before we move to the practice. In this lesson, we've now learned how to describe the applications that participate in the back-to-back sourcing and fulfillment, identify the additional or alternative setup options which support back-to-back flows for manufacturing, procurement, and inventory management, and describe setup options for the end-to-end flow. Back-to-back supply creation and fulfillment, change management. Our learning objectives are as follows. After completing this lesson, you should be able to explain the impact of order changes on back-to-back processing and supply changes on back-to-back processing. This diagram flow depicts an overall fulfillment process. An order gets promised and a supply order is created. Depending on the source of the item, manufacturing, procurement, or inventory will provide the supply, which is then shipped to the customer. The steps highlighted in red indicate the introduction of change, which may trigger change management. Here are some examples of demand-side changes. As a scenario, a customer may request a different quantity of the item that was previously ordered. Perhaps the customer cannot take delivery on the scheduled date and asks for a schedule change. Maybe the customer cancels the order completely. Or an order manager could take supply scheduled for one customer and then reschedule it for a higher priority customer order. For supply-side changes, there could be other scenarios. Perhaps the supplier cannot provide the requested quantity of the item and an additional item source must be found. Or the supplier or the manufacturing cannot meet the scheduled date and ask for a schedule change. Perhaps the supplier needs to cancel the entire supply or the PO. Or the buyer may change the delivery date because the supply is already purchase order. So what actually happens when a sales order change is received? Within order management, when a change order is received from an order capture system, original order is identified and the changes are determined. Processing constraint rules are then applied to determine permissible actions based on the identified delta. If constraints are violated, the change order is rejected. For example, a change order will not be accepted if the item has already been shipped. Then the change management processing orchestration process carrying out the compensation actions, which returns processing to the step where the change was actually received. Supply chain orchestration. When a demand change is received from order management, SCO makes a corresponding change on the supply and demand are kept in sync. And what happens when a supply change is received? In purchasing, this would allow buyers and suppliers to implement changes on back-to-back purchase orders. It also raises events to signal to subscribing applications that a change has occurred. For supply orchestration, automation and change management will trigger an alternative source of supply when the original supply document, which is a purchase order for example in this instance, has been canceled. It will also support change